Let me ask you a question. How many times have you promised yourself that this is the year, the moment, the day that you will finally take control of your life? You've told yourself, I'll wake up earlier. I'll stop procrastinating. I'll push through that discomfort. But then life happens. The excuses pile up, the distractions take over, and once again, you fall short. You tell yourself you just don't have the discipline. But what if that's not the problem? What if the real issue is that you've been going about it all wrong? What if, in just 25 minutes, you could unlock a secret that would change everything you've ever known about discipline? I'm here today to tell you that discipline isn't some rare trait that only a select few are born with. It's not something you have to hope you have. It's a skill, a muscle that, when trained, will serve you for the rest of your life. So, let's make a deal. I promise you, if you give me the next 25 minutes of your time, you'll walk away with the tools, strategies, and mindset to not only achieve your goals, but to own your discipline forever. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Are you ready to make this the defining moment of your life? You see, everything begins with a decision. And I want to make something absolutely clear. Discipline doesn't start with some massive action. It doesn't begin with some complicated 10-step plan. It doesn't begin with a miracle workout routine or some new diet. No. It begins with a decision. And that decision is everything. The moment you decide, your life changes. I want you to think about the last time you told yourself, I'm going to do this no matter what. That moment, that decision, that's the moment. Discipline is born. You see, discipline isn't something you get from a book, a seminar, or from following someone else's perfect routine. Discipline is born from the moment you say, this is who I am, and I'll no longer tolerate anything less. But here's the thing that most people miss. They think they need motivation to create discipline. They think, I'll wait until I feel ready. I'll wait until I feel inspired. But that's not how it works. Motivation is fleeting. Motivation will come and go. But what's always available to you is your decision. The moment you declare with absolute certainty, this is who I am, and nothing is going to stand in my way. You don't need to wait for the perfect circumstances. You don't need to wait until the stars align. You don't need to wait until you feel like it. No, you need to decide now. The decision doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be fully formed. It just needs to be made. It's like stepping onto a moving train. Once you're on, you can figure out the details as you go, but it's the first step of stepping on that changes everything. What happens when you make that decision? The moment you make that decision to truly commit to discipline, you shift your identity. You stop identifying as the person who struggles to wake up early, the person who gives up halfway through, the person who always has an excuse. And you start identifying as someone who gets it done, someone who owns their day, someone who controls their mind, their actions, and their results. You become a person who follows through. Now, I know you may be thinking, but I've tried this before and it didn't stick. I made that decision before and ended up back in the same place. That's the beauty of this. It's not about being perfect. It's about being persistent. You'll fall, but the decision to get back up and keep going is what makes you unstoppable. The first time you commit, it's tough. You may struggle. You might feel resistance. But as you continue, the decision becomes a part of you. It becomes the backbone of your daily actions, your behavior, and ultimately your results. Let me give you an example. Think of any champion, someone who you admire, someone who consistently succeeds. They didn't get there by waiting for the perfect moment or perfect motivation. They got there by committing to that decision every single day, no matter the odds, no matter the obstacles. When you look at the champions, you're seeing the result of relentless decisions. They didn't wait for their circumstances to change. They changed their identity, and that changed everything. When you make a decision, something magical happens. You start to see the world differently. You start to see every challenge, every moment of discomfort, every I don't feel like it as an opportunity to reinforce that decision you made. That's the shift. You stop seeing the hard moments as roadblocks and start seeing them as tests to strengthen your commitment. Every time you push through, you solidify that new identity. You're telling yourself, this is who I am and nothing is going to stop me. Now, I want you to think about what happens when you don't make a decision. When you stay in the land of maybe or someday, nothing changes. There's no urgency. You let the days drift by without real purpose. You stay stuck in the cycle of I'll do it tomorrow, and the days slip away. There's no power in someday. It's just a dream that never materializes. But when you make that decision, when you step into that new identity, your life shifts immediately. Suddenly, you're not controlled by circumstances. You're not waiting for life to hand you the perfect conditions. You've taken ownership, and ownership is the key to discipline. When you decide to take full responsibility for your actions, your thoughts, and your life, the power of that decision will push you forward. You'll see that discipline isn't some abstract concept. It's the direct result of your commitment to yourself and your future. So today, right now, make that decision. Decide who you are. Decide that you are disciplined. And from that moment on, every action you take will be a reflection of that decision. You'll no longer be someone who says maybe or later. You'll be someone who says, this is what I'm doing, and there's nothing that's going to stop me. Make that decision and watch your life transform. Now, let me ask you something. How many times have you heard people say, I'll start tomorrow? Or I'll begin next week, or even I'll wait until I'm more motivated? If I'm being honest, that's the exact reason so many people fall short of their goals. They're waiting for this massive, life-changing moment to kick them into action. But here's the secret. Discipline doesn't require a huge leap. It requires small, consistent actions. Tiny wins that build momentum one at a time. Imagine you want to get in shape, right? Most people make the mistake of trying to overhaul their entire routine overnight. They go all in, buying all the gear, setting up a crazy intense workout plan, and then they burn out. They expect instant results. But here's the truth. It's the tiny wins that lead to the massive victories. Think about it. You don't need to run a marathon tomorrow. You don't need to lift 100 pounds on day one. You just need to commit to one thing, just one small thing. Maybe it's waking up 10 minutes earlier than usual. Maybe it's adding a 5-minute walk to your day. Maybe it's saying no to one bad habit, one unhealthy snack. These small decisions compound over time, and suddenly you're seeing results you never thought were possible. But it starts with that first tiny win. The problem most people face is they get stuck in the all or nothing mindset. They think that if they don't go all in right away, it's not worth it. But that's the lie. What happens when you break it down into bite-sized pieces is that every time you win, even in the smallest way, you're reinforcing your new identity. You're building confidence. And you're setting the stage for the next win. And before you know it, those tiny wins have stacked up into something monumental. When I say tiny wins, I'm not talking about anything fancy or complicated. I'm talking about the basics, the things that seem almost too simple to matter. But here's the truth. The basics work. Every time you do something small that moves you closer to your goal, you're training your mind and body to follow through. Your brain starts recognizing that effort leads to reward, and as you keep stacking these wins, the momentum builds. And what you'll discover is that momentum is the ultimate game changer. Think about it like a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it's small, but with every rotation, it picks up more snow, more energy, more power. Eventually, it's a massive force that can't be stopped. The same happens when you commit to those small wins. They don't seem like much at first, but over time, they accumulate, and suddenly you're a different person. You've created a snowball effect of success, and nothing will stand in your way. Here's the key. Momentum is not created by doing big things. It's created by doing small things consistently. Every time you do something, no matter how small, you're sending a message to your brain that says, I can do this, I can commit. And as that message gets stronger and stronger, your discipline becomes automatic. You don't have to fight it anymore. It's who you are. You don't need to talk yourself into doing the right thing. You just do it. Let's take it a step further. Every tiny win you stack is like adding fuel to your internal fire. When you see yourself doing the work, no matter how small, your confidence grows, and confidence is everything. Confidence makes the next win easier. Confidence makes the next action feel natural. Confidence makes you unstoppable. But that confidence doesn't come from trying to change everything at once. It comes from building on those wins one by one, day by day. Here's another powerful thing about tiny wins. They don't require huge amounts of willpower. Willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired and fatigued after a while. If you rely on sheer willpower to change your life, you're setting yourself up for failure. But tiny wins don't drain you. They don't require you to fight yourself. They just require you to show up, take that small action, and celebrate it. So think about the habits you want to create in your life. Don't focus on the end goal. Focus on the first win. When you start small, it feels effortless. And when it feels effortless, you're more likely to keep going. And when you keep going, that momentum starts working in your favor. Slowly but surely, you start to develop the discipline you've been looking for. But it starts with the small things. Every time you show up, even for a few minutes, even for a tiny effort, you're setting yourself up for the bigger wins. And I'm telling you, those small wins will take you farther than you could ever imagine. You'll begin to see your discipline skyrocket, not because you suddenly became perfect, but because you started with something simple, something easy, something that you could win at right now. That's the real power of tiny wins. So today, commit to one small action, just one thing you can do right now to move forward. That's the key to building momentum. One win. And once you experience that, you'll realize how much power you truly have within you. Stacking those wins and watch your life transform, I want to share something that could completely change the way you view discipline. Discipline isn't just about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. It's not about gritting your teeth and pushing through every challenge, ignoring how you feel. No, the real secret to lasting discipline is learning how to master your state, how to control your emotions, your energy, and your mindset. Because here's the truth. If you don't control your emotional state, your state will control you. Think about the times when you struggled with discipline. What was happening? Chances are you weren't in the right emotional state. Maybe you felt tired, overwhelmed, or distracted. Maybe you were stuck in a negative thought pattern, telling yourself you weren't good enough, that it's worth it, or that you didn't feel like doing it. All those negative emotions drain your energy, stop you in your tracks, and keep you from moving forward. But when you can change your state, when you can take control of how you feel and how you respond to life, you gain the power to follow through on anything. Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a moment where, even though things weren't going well, you suddenly found the energy to push through? Maybe you were exhausted, maybe you didn't feel like it, but something inside of you switched, and suddenly you were unstoppable. Maybe you got a burst of motivation, or maybe you just decided that nothing was going to stop you. In that moment, you were in control of your state, and everything else flowed from that. That's the magic of mastering your state. When you control how you feel, you control your actions. When you control your energy, you control your results. When you shift your focus, you shift your destiny. The key is understanding that your emotional state is not something that happens to you. It's something you create. It's not some random event that's out of your hands. You are the one in charge. You get to decide how you feel. So how do you do this? How do you master your state so that discipline becomes automatic? It starts with physicality. That's right. How you use your body can completely change your emotional state. Think about it. When you're feeling down, what's your body language like? You probably slump your shoulders, look down, maybe even breathe shallow. Everything in your body reflects how you're feeling emotionally. Now think about a time when you're excited or feeling confident. What happens? You stand taller, your chest opens up, and your breathing deepens. Your body is reflecting that positive emotional state. Here's the powerful part. When you shift your body, you can shift your mind. The simple act of changing your posture, your breathing, or your physical movement can change how you feel instantly. Have you ever tried jumping up and down or even just striking a powerful pose for a few seconds? It sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, it works. The reason is simple. Your body and mind are connected. When you change your body, you send signals to your brain that it's time to be more alert, more focused, and more energized. You can go from feeling sluggish to feeling unstoppable in just a few seconds by using your body to change your state. But it's not just about physicality. It's also about language. The words you use to talk to yourself shape your experience. When you say things like, I can't, it's too hard, or I'm not good enough, you reinforce a negative emotional state. But when you speak to yourself with power, when you say, I've got this, I will do this, I am unstoppable, your emotional state shifts. Your words shape your thoughts, and your thoughts shape your actions. This is why affirmations and positive self-talk are so powerful. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about reinforcing the belief that you have the power to handle whatever comes your way. When you use language that empowers you, your state shifts and discipline becomes easier. Suddenly, doing the right thing doesn't feel like a fight. It feels natural because your mind and body are aligned. But even more important than your body and your words is the meaning you attach to situations. Meaning is the most powerful force in shaping your emotional state. When you look at a challenge, you can choose to see it as something negative, something overwhelming, or something you can't handle. Or you can choose to see it as an opportunity to grow, to strengthen your discipline, to prove to yourself that you are capable of more. When you change the meaning of what you're experiencing, you change your emotional response. And when you change your emotional response, you change your actions. This is where most people get stuck. They feel overwhelmed and they attach the meaning of I can't do this or it's too hard. But the most successful people in life attach a different meaning. They look at a challenge and say, this is what will make me stronger. This is what will sharpen my discipline. And from that mindset, they take action. You see, mastering your state is not about waiting for motivation to show up or hoping that things will magically align. It's about taking control. It's about choosing how you feel and deciding to show up as the best version of yourself, no matter the situation. When you control your state, you control your life. And that, my friend, is the key to creating lasting discipline. You've heard me say it before, but let me remind you of something important. Your standards shape your destiny. The reason most people struggle with discipline is because they haven't raised their standards. They've settled for what's comfortable. They've let their feelings dictate their actions instead of their standards. And here's the truth. If you let your feelings drive your life, you'll never be in control because feelings are temporary. They come and go. But your standards define who you are and what you'll achieve. And when your standards are higher than your moods, your discipline becomes effortless. Think about it. How many times have you said, I just don't feel like it today? Maybe you didn't feel like working out or eating healthy or pushing through that tough moment. I get it. We all face those days. But what if, instead of letting how you feel determine your actions, you made your standards the guiding force in your life? What if you decided that no matter how you felt, you were going to show up because your standards demanded it? Let me tell you something. Your standards are the foundation of everything you do. If your standards are high, your actions will follow. If your standards are low, you'll find yourself constantly fighting to stay on track. But when your standards are aligned with who you truly want to be, discipline becomes automatic. You no longer have to rely on willpower or motivation because your standards will pull you forward, even on the toughest days. Now let's break this down. When I say standards, I'm not talking about some vague concept or wishful thinking. I'm talking about the non-negotiables you set for yourself. I'm talking about the rules you live by. Your standards are what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not. They are the lines you draw in the sand that say, this is who I am and this is what I'm committed to. For example, let's say your standard is to always take care of your body. You don't negotiate with that standard. It doesn't matter if you're tired, if you've had a long day, or if you're not feeling motivated, because your standard is not about feelings, it's about what you're willing to do no matter what. And when you live by that standard, you show up. Even on the days when you don't feel like it, you take action because your standard is higher than your mood. Now, the powerful part about setting high standards is that you start to expect more from yourself. You don't settle for mediocrity. You don't let excuses rule your life. You make decisions based on what you've committed to, not on what's easy or comfortable in the moment. This is where most people fall short. They let their emotions drive their actions. They say, I'll do it when I feel like it, and then they end up stuck in a cycle of procrastination and disappointment. But when you raise your standards, you take action whether you feel like it or not. And that's the key to creating lasting discipline. Let's look at some examples of high standards in action. Think about the most successful people you know. They don't rely on motivation to get things done. They don't wait until they feel like it. They've raised their standards to a level where their actions are driven by commitment, not emotion. They've decided that certain behaviors are non-negotiable, and those behaviors define their success. Take a moment to think about your own life. What are your non-negotiables? What are the things that you refuse to tolerate? If you're someone who is committed to being fit, then your standard is to exercise regularly no matter what. If you're someone who values growth and success, your standard is to invest in your personal development day in and day out. If you're someone who wants to be a great leader, then your standard is to show up with integrity, to serve others, and to make an impact. When you raise your standards, you automatically start to raise your actions. You no longer question whether you're going to take the necessary steps to achieve your goals. You just do it because it's part of who you are. It's in your DNA. And when your actions are aligned with your highest standards, you no longer have to battle with yourself over discipline. It becomes second nature. Now, here's the catch. You can't raise your standards without holding yourself accountable. This is where most people drop the ball. They set high standards, but they don't have a system in place to make sure they follow through. They don't hold themselves to those standards when it's inconvenient, when it's uncomfortable, or when they don't feel like it. But if you truly want to master discipline, you must hold yourself accountable every single day. Your standards don't work if you don't back them up with action. And that's where the power comes in. Your ability to show up no matter what and meet the standard you've set for yourself. So today I challenge you to take a hard look at your standards. Are they high enough? Are they pulling you forward? Or are they allowing you to stay comfortable? If you want to be more disciplined, raise your standards. Don't wait for motivation or inspiration to strike. Set your standards so high that they force you to act. And then make sure you hold yourself accountable to them every single day. Is when your standards are higher than your feelings, there's no limit to what you can achieve.